work. So about 15 minutes, I'll do a little talk, and then maybe we can sort of introduce each other and have some chats after that. So about 15 minutes. Thank you very much of the project. Then after I've blathered on for a little bit, hopefully you'll get some more interesting information from Ron Hemwood, who's here somewhere, I think. Ron, who is going to say a little bit as speaking on behalf of the interviewees. And then we'll wrap up, and I hope we'll have an opportunity for you all to kind of talk to each other, and then when Elsie's come back from her moment of stardom with Spotlight outside, she'll play a few more tunes and we can have a bit of a knees up. Is she there? Sorry, Elsie. Sorry. I'm on 10%, Elsie, I remember that. So this project arose about 2.5 years ago, and as you can see, it was supported by the Heritage Lottery Fund. One of the earliest supporters of the project was Tony Davey, who you may know from Plymouth and West Devon Record Office. If some of you haven't heard one of Tony's legendary talks on the history of Plymouth, you should, because he's one of the best. And I'd like personally to thank Tony very much for his support of the project, and he gave a lot of guidance to how we should run it. At the end of this, I'm going to hand over the archive material to Tony, and I'll explain to you how you can access the formal information. But the original idea for the project was simply Tamsin, who runs the Word Machine, who you all know, and is the most effective member of the organisation. Tamsin and I felt it was just very important that, as we both grew up in Plymouth and we're both Plymouth residents, that something should be done to try and record the memories of the experiences which you all went through during the war, and as the experiences that you had of discovering the new Plymouth after the war. And we thought if we don't do it now, then you know, someone's got to do it. So it was a very simple idea, and I think we have been genuinely humbled by the response that we got, and I think all of us have just found the experience of interviewing you and getting your stories to be really, you know, just quite an extraordinary experience. And I do thank you very much for your participation, and I know in many instances it's required a lot of bravery on your part to go through some of those memories. So we do appreciate it, and I think the citizens of Plymouth will appreciate the fact that you've recorded those memories forever. What I'm going to do is play just a couple of quick pieces now, if I can make this technology work, just to give you a flavour. The first one is sadly, George Easton passed away recently. I don't know if any of you remember George, but a very elegantly well-dressed man in his tweed suits, a very lovely man, and he gave a remarkable interview about this church. And George was coming back from on a moment of leave from London, and he got into Plymouth the night there was an incendiary attack on this very church. And what he does in this little clip, which if I can make it work, he describes exactly what
themselves. The incendiary was walk around, hold everything quiet, and I passed the church, and there was.
Which church was that?
St. Saviour's. St.
Saviour's, right.
And smoke was coming out of it, and I thought, blimey, it's incendiary. They dropped incendiary there, and there were bits of incendiaries that expended themselves. The incendiary was about that wide in diameter and about that long.
That's
and yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, yeah. And there were pieces of it about, but some had gone through the church, and I knew the church was on fire inside, but no flame anywhere. So it was a blimey, this is it. The first thing I fetch a fire brigade, but you couldn't fetch a fire brigade. The fire brigade, they were not allowed out when the raid had gone.
Oh, right.
And the policemen were not allowed.
Really?
Oh, you see these films nowadays, they're then squirting water on the fires and that, but that was after the all clear.
Oh, right.
They don't do it. And I tried it. I kicked the money door, and the church door, you know, it's very strong, and I couldn't open it, and I knew the vicar was not the vicar that I had been brought up with. He was only been given the parish about a year or two, and I hadn't even spoken to him because I was away most of the time, you know. And I was wondering, should I call him? Because the vicarage was adjoining the church, like, you know. Then I thought, no, probably the vicarage was in darkness, so I thought he's probably in his shelter where he's supposed to be, and he is. And he had two boys younger than me, you know, and so I didn't bother, but I detested it, you know, because I knew if I could get in there, I could help something. Well, by the first start of the fire, I could have done something, you know, but you know, I felt really, honestly, I felt really helpless. And later, the fire, the aircraft came back again. There was more aircraft coming in, and of course I went back in the shelter. And then after about another hour or more, it came to about 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning, the all clear went. So I went to bed, and my brothers, they were in the army then, before they were conscripted. They came into me, come and I knew I couldn't help them because it was a raging fire in the church, and the church was gone, and I had given up because I wish the hell the fire brigade could have got there and did it. But
so you know, it did survive, but I think it's a pretty extraordinary kind of moment, isn't it? Just thinking of George just trying to hammer on that door there. And one other kind of flavour I thought I'd give you, which again, you know, I hope would probably be familiar to many of you, was had a certain touch of humour in it, I think. And this is, I hope Delise Ashworth doesn't mind. Delise is here somewhere, I think. But Delise was going to just give you a brief description of what it's like when you're actually in the house and the raids are going on. And it's just a short piece, but again it gives you a flavour of, it's almost a kind of the domestic element of being in this kind of situation, which my generation, thank God, hasn't gone through.
Well, you see, we had frequent raids, of course we did. But then the first Blitz was the night before, and the noise was terrible. And of course, we weren't entitled to Anderson shelters, but 2 of our tenants ripped out the basement, and I think the top floor, or somebody else, had entitled to what they call Anderson shelters, which were the curved ones, and they were put up at the bottom of our garden. But during the winter, they let in water, because they were standing in water, so we couldn't go down there. So what we did was, we went under the cupboards, under the stairs, in the basement of the house. The dear old lady was in a cupboard by herself on one chair. We were all in the other, and I held the Black's baby, I held her in my arms because her mother was having hysterics. And I got the baby to sleep. I was very pleased with myself. And also, coming with us was a friend of mine who left her husband. She left her husband and she got with her naval army naval cadet boyfriend, you know. It was Doreen. That was another friendship that went on for a long time. And we were down there. And the previous night, we'd had all the soot come down every chimney. The front door had been blown off. Some of the windows, some of the windows had been blown out. And we had an incendiary bomb that fell through the bathroom flat roof onto the wash basin, into the floor, and set alight to the floor. Well, of course, we had this army sergeant with us that night. He wasn't on duty at the Citadel. And we had the Air Force man. And between them, the bullet shut off the incendiary and saved the building. I mean, it was damaged. And
well, I think that, again, that gives another description of the realities which you all have told us about. So I'd just like to close now by just saying just a few thank yous. I've already said thank you to the Heritage Lottery Fund, who supported us, Plymouth and West Devon Record Office, who've supported us, and Plymouth University, who's given us huge amounts of guidance and help. I'd just like to mention here St Saviour's. I don't know how many of you now know St Saviour's has been saved again, and this time round by the sterling efforts of the Lenkovich Foundation, and JP is here somewhere. I think running around being as useful as he always is. So do have a chat with JP if you want to talk about the activities which are happening in the church. He's hiding down there. And the Photo Now, who are the photographic organisation in Plymouth who took all the photographs of you. I'd like to thank them for their involvement as well. And more than anything, apart from thanking you all once more, I'd like to thank our volunteers. We had absolutely masses of help from interviewers who were all trained up by the university, and incredibly diligent people who actually transcribed everything. So the end result of all, having thanked them all for that participation, the end result of all that is a whole series of data which we have distilled at the moment into this book. So the book contains a summary which Tamsin has done all on her own, and both edited it and designed it and put it all together. But the full data, all your interviews, both transcribed and the oral interviews, are kept together on a computer disk now, which we're handing over to the Plymouth and West Devon Record Office. And we'll put up some publicity over the next couple of weeks about how you or your friends or your family can access the total material, which Tony will look after. But I just want to say a couple of words, Tony.
Yeah, thanks very much. Just a couple of words. It's hard to believe that everybody's interviews and photographs, etc., are all on this. But what I would like to say is that on behalf of Plymouth, I'd like to thank you all for taking part in this project. This period in Plymouth's history is, for me, one of the most important in Plymouth's history throughout the centuries, and we all know about the heroes, etc., and the big names, but actually nothing has had an impact on Plymouth as much as that period of the Second World War and the post-war rebuilding. And to be able to capture so many stories and so many insights into that period for future generations to understand and to get an insight into what life was like is just magical, and we are so pleased to be receiving this. My son is 10, and this term he's just been studying the Second World War, and he's done the evacuee bit and all that kind of stuff. The highlight for him over the past sort of 6 weeks doing at school was talking to people who lived through that experience, and that really brought home to him what that period meant. Now, in 40, 50 years' time, it's this information that's going to be able to do that same thing. So a massive thank you to all of you for taking part. It is a really worthwhile contribution to the city's archive collections. Thank you very much.
Now, I was going to ask Ron to just say a few words. Over to you, Ron.
Earlier ones, one was about 8 years ago when the sister at the chest clinic phoned me up one afternoon and said, "Ron, can you go to a meeting out at Plimpton? There's a gardening club out there and I'm supposed to give them a lecture about the chest clinic." I said, "What the hell do I know about the chest clinic?" And she said, "You're over here every week with your wife on a Monday. You know exactly what happens." And I will just stop for a minute. I just said to my wife, 8 years today she died. And she had more experience of what happened in the war than I did. All I had was 2 incendiaries at the back of a tenement when I was living in Chapel Street. But imagine what it is to a child to come out of an air raid shelter and see your home flattened. Nothing. Your toys are gone, your clothes are gone. The elder people have lost their birth certificate, marriage certificate. There wasn't any welfare around or social in those days. You just had to search around your neighbours, your friends, your family, and see what you could get. And then on top of that, she lost her father on the repulse. Now, you know, as I said, 8 years exactly today, at 2 o'clock in the morning she died. And I hope she's here in spirit. But, as I said, thrown in business, can you go in and take over the classes? I was a carpenter and joiner by trade, although I did pass national certificates in construction, etc. And at the time I was a building inspector. So I said, what is it you're teaching? He said, bricklaying. And what the hell do I know about bricklaying? Anyway, one of the silly things that happened there, I go in, I try to mark the register, there's 3. I don't know what it does to an adult. I was a child, and I said, I just was glad when it was over that everything finished, because it was a very frightening experience. And I think you all, I've read some of you in here, and funnily enough, I have put in here, because Tamsin laughed about it, we were in a shelter that was hit. And when it was hit, the other end got killed. If it had been my end, I wouldn't have been here, would I? And this was the torch my father had. I've still looked after it. And when we switched that one on, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. The dust that came up was terrible. And we had to stay in there until the sirens finished. And then climbed out through some railings to get out.
Could I ask you a question?
Yes.
Would that be Wyndham Square?
No.
No.
No. I could come to that tale a bit closer when they told